Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Wallace. Hope you are doing well. I just wanted to do this short video about the topic of the shutdown rule before you end up doing the problems for today. Yesterday you worked on the example with perfect competition, looking at revenues and looking at costs, how many basketballs would be produced, and if you got the answer of 6 basketballs, you'd be spot on, right? After the 6th basketball, we would note that the marginal cost was greater than the marginal revenue, and you wouldn't produce, the 7th basketball. And if you produce, 6 basketballs, what your revenues would be and what your costs would be, either per unit or in total. So from there, you can figure out if you are profit making. In class, we did showcase the graphs for a firm that's making a profit and also a firm that's making a loss. So I'm going to start out this video by just reminding you what it looks like when a firm is making a loss. We have our marginal cost curve and our marginal revenue curve. And from this example, I can see that marginal revenue equals marginal cost at 6 output, so 6 cans of soda or whatever it is. So we know the quantity that we would need to produce. I can't figure out profits or losses until I add on the ATC. So let's put the ATC. And in this case, that's the AVC. The ATC is going to be greater in this case than the marginal revenue. At the quantity of 6, sorry about that, at the quantity of 6, I can see that the ATC is somewhere around $100, and the marginal revenue for every next good, or the price rather, is $81, okay? So of course my average total cost is greater than my price, which means I'm making a loss on every single unit, and I can actually shade that total loss. For every one of my 6 units, I have a loss. In class, Cougar had asked a question: how do we know what would happen to a firm, right? A firm could be operating and be making a loss, but at a certain point, a firm might shut down. If a firm shuts down, we have a couple of expectations, right? A firm that shuts down would only be producing it wouldn't be producing any product if it shuts down, so supply would be 0, but it would be paying for its fixed costs. We assume shutdown is different than going out of business. Going out of business means selling the firm and you're completely, not at all, doing any production, and you also have 0 costs because you're not in business anymore. With a shutdown, let's use the example of like Van Dyke's ice cream place in Ridgewood. They might be in a position where industry-wise, in the wintertime, ice cream might be in less demand, right? So if ice cream's in less demand in the wintertime, the price for ice cream in the wintertime might be a little lower. So maybe typically it's a firm where the price is much higher. In the wintertime, the price goes much lower. And if that's happening, industry-wide, and let's assume Van Dyke's ice cream place is in a perfectly competitive industry, they might be in a position where the price goes low enough that while they might not be interested in selling their business because they know in the summer demand is going to increase, they might be better off by just shutting down. If they shut down, they're not selling any ice cream, so they have no revenue, but they're also not paying any workers or buying any ingredients. The only types of costs they would have would be their fixed costs, things related to perhaps the rent, or perhaps the insurance or something like that. So the rule of thumb that we're going to suggest in this case, with the example that we're looking at, would this firm shut down or would it stay in business? Well, one way I could ask that is, okay, I have a loss, okay? My loss is pretty significant because I'm losing, what is it? Like $19, on every single one of 6 units, and that's pretty significant. But if I look at what are my total variable costs, I can look at 6, my total variable costs are $75. So I'm actually covering all of my variable costs with the price of $81. And I'm actually covering some of my fixed costs. I'm not covering this section where it's shaded red, but I'm covering some of my fixed costs. If I'm covering all of my variable costs and I'm covering some of my fixed costs, I'm much better staying open because my loss is going to be less than if I shut down. If I shut down, I will lose all of my fixed costs. And this loss will actually increase to be the size of the difference between ATC and AVC, for 6 units. Okay, so this area here would be my total fixed costs, and I would lose all of that. If the price, however, was $50, okay, and the price was really, really, really low, I might be better off shutting down. Okay, so to give you an example of that, what would it look like if we actually were going to shut down? Okay, here's my marginal cost curve. Here's my average variable cost curve. Here's my ATC curve. Okay, so we're actually going to suggest if the price, okay, and here's your rule of thumb. This is going to be the case in every single market, not just perfect competition. The shutdown rule will always apply, even for a monopoly. We could be in the position of shutdown. But if the price decreases lower than minimum AVC, so we've been using ATC to decide profits or losses, whether ATC was greater or less than price. In this case, we're looking at AVC. If the price is lower than minimum AVC, we're going to shut down. Okay, even if it's equal to minimum AVC, we might assume we're kind of indifferent. We would be losing the same amount of fixed costs, whether we're open or shut down or not. In that case, if I'm interested, we just assume I would produce. I love my business, I would produce. But if price is lower than minimum AVC, that's going to be our shutdown point. We're going to shut down. In the industry, because every one of the firms that shut down is exactly the same as like every other firm in the industry, below this price, we're not really going to have supply at this particular, our supply for industry is going to be zero if we have below a certain price, okay? Because no firm is going to be producing below a certain price. And what I like to do when I get those data sets, sometimes we're looking at it graphically. If you're looking at it graphically, it's pretty straightforward. If this price, this MR, remember the price is coming from the market. So the price, something happens, demand decreases, and the price is no longer $81, it's $71. Now it's below minimum AVC. You're not covering your variable costs. If you're not covering your variable costs and you're not covering your fixed costs, you're better, or all of your fixed costs, you are better off just shutting down, where all you're going to lose is your fixed costs, okay? And you don't have any variable costs if you shut down. Okay, so the minimum AVC is your shutdown point. The price goes below minimum AVC, you would shut down. When you're looking at it graphically, it's pretty easy to see when the price is below the minimum point of AVC. If you are looking at a data set and you're looking at AVC as its own column, something I like to do is circle the minimum AVC. So you've got all of this data. You can kind of tell the bowl shape of the AVC curve. Just circle the minimum AVC. That way you know if the price goes below that, you're going to shut down. Okay, and shut down means you're producing zero, no product. So if we go back to that like basketball question and we say, okay, the price changed from $12.50 to $5, should you produce? In that case, you should produce. You should produce, I think it's 3 basketballs or something like that. You should produce because the price of $5 is still greater than minimum AVC. If you look at some other examples, like in the problem sheet today, look for the issue of shutdown. When the price gets lower and lower and lower, progressively, you want to start asking yourself, not only at what quantity should I produce and does the firm have a profit or loss, but if you have a situation where you should shut down. If your price, your marginal revenue equals your price, if your price is less than your average variable cost minimum point. The last thing is sometimes you're asked if you have a profit or a loss, and if you shut down, you do have a loss. You have the loss of all of your fixed costs. It is not a choice that means no consequences. It just means that your fixed costs would be a lower dollar amount than some other loss that you could potentially have, including all of your fixed costs and some variable costs, okay? If you can't pay some of your workers, you're best to shut down, okay? I hope that that helps. Use this as an example to work through the 2 problem sets for today, and I will see you in class on Thursday.